Good afternoon, everyone. This is Shancy with HomeGauge. Looks like we've had several people log in who've been registering over the last week, and we've got quite a group, so hopefully we'll get some excellent questions here and there to really prompt some conversation about the best ways to use the HomeGauge Companion. Obviously, our webinar today is how to use the HomeGauge Companion. I will admit it's been some time since I've done a webinar on this topic, but I think I've got a pretty good outline and I've made some points as to cover some details that otherwise I think get overlooked. I have Matt with us today, and for those of you who have questions throughout the webinar, I will stop now and then and say, does anyone have any questions? And you have a little chat box available on your menu there, and you can ask a question, and Matt will typically answer that for you. That way I don't have to stop. If you have something in the middle of a topic, then definitely Matt will answer it, but we're trying to keep the flow pretty decent so that we stay within our hour, because I am obviously infamous for doing an awful lot of talking. So why don't we get started here? We've got a lot of seasoned users attending today. I'm really glad to see a lot of you here. Maybe there's some new users. I don't know. I recognize many names here from the HomeGauge users Facebook page. So that's nice. Why don't we just get started with my outline and we'll go through. So my very first topic I'd like to mention is, let's talk about what does the HomeGauge Companion do and what doesn't it do? It does not distribute reports, but it does collect data so that you can write your report faster. Basically, what you do is you would send your template to your companion, and you would use the companion to collect things like comments, photos, indicate your styles and materials, that type of thing, so that when you get the information back to your PC, because you do transfer that data back to the PC, you would review that information, make sure everything looks good, and then distribute your report. There's a variety of ways to get started with this. Obviously, I'm going to go through a lot of things that you can do, but for those of you who are new, don't feel like you have to take it all on at the same time. I usually recommend start with pictures. Just take the pictures, send the information back to your PC, and then finish the report there. Then do pictures and styles and materials. And take yourself some time, make sure that you feel comfortable, and each time add another step. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say that within a week or two, for those of you especially who may not be as comfortable using a mobile device for this type of thing, you should easily be able to do the majority of your report on site, and then review your findings at home and distribute the report on the PC. You can't modify your template on the mobile device. You cannot distribute the report on the mobile device. You can review your summary, and you can review the pictures that are in the report from the mobile device. I'm going to be using an Android today. Those of you who are using iOS devices, although there are people who use it successfully, the Android device is the preferred operating system because it's easier for us to make changes to. We can control updates and modifications in-house. Everything you'll see today is based on the menus on an Android device. I'm using a Pixel XL2. That's my personal device. I really do like it. I find it's got a lot of options that work well. So if anybody has any questions about that, you're welcome to email me if you're looking for a device as to what might work for you. It's a good size screen as well. I always like to make sure everyone knows what version I'm using when we're doing something like this, because there are certain updates and features that are available on older versions, and then the newer ones have new features. So from the software, I'm going up to Help, and then I'm going to go down to About HomeGauge, and you can see that I'm using 5.3.5. That allows for the use of forms for the HomeGauge Companion. So if you're in a state where forms are used, say Florida, where we have the 4-point or the wind mitigation form, you can complete them on the HomeGauge Companion. And there's a couple of things to consider with that. But I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that that's the version I'm using. And now I'm going to show you the version I am using of the HomeGauge Companion. I have my screen here. I have my device is projecting onto this screen. This is what the companion looks like when you first open it. There would just be a little icon on your phone or your mobile device. So the version that I'm using here, and I'm going to click on this little 3-dot menu and go down to About, and it's going to tell me what version I'm using, which is 5.3.3. The update for this has to do with the forms availability on the mobile device. Everyone should know that's, if yours looks different, if you don't find the forms or any of the things that I'm doing here, you may just have to check the version that you're using. It is important that before you get started with creating a report, there's a few things you have to do, obviously. One of them is you need to own a HomeGauge Companion license. And HomeGauge, either if you have a subscription, that's included in your monthly subscription, so you just have to, call HomeGauge and ask them how to get started. Or if you have purchased a HomeGauge Companion separately, then you would have that licensing information on your dashboard. Once you have done that and you're outside your trial, you're going to want to look at the camera settings. So we all have these great cameras on our mobile devices. They really make a huge difference in taking pictures of our kids and our cats and the sunset, and it's all fantastic. The settings for that type of thing are much higher than what they would need to be in an inspection report. There's two reasons for that. Number one, it's a home inspection report. It's not Hollywood. And HomeGauge is going to resize that picture once it gets into the software anyway. You could take the most beautiful, high-resolution picture ever on your HomeGauge Companion, but once it gets into your HomeGauge software, that software is like, yeah, we don't need that to be 12 megapixels. It's going to resize it. And the second reason would be when you transfer the report from your mobile device to the cloud and onto your PC, there's only so much storage in the cloud to do that. And because all of the pictures are stored in their original size on the Companion for that transfer, you don't want to go over I think it's 200 megabytes. It's easy to go over that if you've got 12 megapixel pictures. HomeGauge generally, I don't know if they formally recommend specific camera apps to look at, but you can look at your own camera app and look at the settings. So I'm going to open up the camera app on my phone, and you can kind of see how that might work. Oh, there's my kid. Yay, everyone always wonders what she looks like. No, she's always on my Facebook page. So I'm just going into my camera and I'm going into my settings. Everyone can see my little code there. And if you come down, you can see here that I've got the photo resolution, okay? So for my default camera, I have my front camera and my back camera. The back camera is the one that you use. And right now that's set to 12.2 megapixels, which is really high. If I go in there, I can see what the options are for my particular phone actually has an acceptable megapixel setting, but oftentimes that's just not the case. So there's other reasons to use an alternate camera app, even if your camera app on the default one on your phone has the right setting. I would typically say that the primary reason is if you make all of your settings really low on the standard camera, you might take pictures of everyday things that are more important to you. When you take a picture of your kid, you take a picture of your cat, your house, whatever, a family reunion, you don't want that to be a low resolution picture. I think it's a good thing to have two cameras on your device, one for the HomeGauge Companion and one for your everyday picture taking. Leave the everyday picture taking one at a high resolution and then use the other camera for the HomeGauge Companion. That way, you're not saying, oh, I need this to be higher, and you go in and you change the resolution for your everyday picture taking and you forget to change it back, and now your report is too big to upload. I just think it's a good rule to follow. Just have two so you don't have to go back and forth. Mine would be fine, but as an exercise, I actually installed a secondary app on my phone. I use an app called A Better Camera, and I use it just because it has good settings. It seems to do everything that I need it to do. I don't know if it saves pictures to the gallery. So if that's important to you, you're going to want to look at that. The other cameras that are really popular are Camera MX, Open Camera, and there's even a camera out there called Annotation Camera. The Annotation Camera, it allows you to mark up the picture right on the mobile device. I don't like it because it saves the original pictures with the annotations, so that's not really my favorite thing. I opened A Better Camera and I'm going to come in here to the settings, and you can see that it has a lot of choices. Typically, HomeGauge recommends it to be less than a megapixel, so this very bottom one is what HomeGauge would recommend. If you're not a really heavy picture taker, I don't think that having it at 1.2 or 1.4 is a huge deal. You want to experiment with that. And then I would also point out something that I personally think is something to consider is the picture ratio, like the dimension ratio, like 1:1. You might find that a square picture is easier to manipulate when you're finalizing your report. But I'm going to leave mine on 1.4, but typically if you're a really heavy picture taker, you want to be sure that that's appropriate for you. So I'm going to come back in here. So it is important before you get started, don't be running out and saying, I'm going to be like the HomeGauge Companion master and I'm going to take all these pictures. Because if you do that and you get home, I promise you, you will be very, very sad. If you get home and you have too many pictures and it's 8 o'clock at night and you don't know how to get your report over to your computer. Eric is asking what the best ratio is. I like 1:1. I like the 1:1 ratio because if you had to turn the picture or you turn your camera, you're less likely to get those long, skinny, vertical pictures. Whereas if you have something that the ratio is more extreme, you're going to have more of a horizontal picture. And if you have to turn it, I just have a real big thing about those pictures being the same dimension in the report. I just have an aesthetic issue about it, and I like for them to be all the same. So that is my personal preference. There's nothing wrong with you experimenting with it. If push comes to shove and you're concerned about it, always take your picture from the same position, like always take it horizontal or always take it vertical, and you won't have to worry about that so much. It's when you turn the camera where that ratio thing comes into play. And so the 16:9 is probably too wide. I could understand that. So Eric's saying he tried a 16:9 ratio, which is a really common ratio on a camera. It's probably something, I would try the 1:1. I just think it's, see how it works for you. If you can find it, I've not always found a camera that has the 1:1 and the resolution setting together. So just kind of look around for that. Also, the video resolution should be the lowest that your camera will allow, just because those files get really big. And don't ask me, how big is a file? Well, there's a lot of things that come into play when you look at it, when you consider a video file, and that has to do with lighting and dimension and how much movement there is, even sound. So one video that might be, 10 seconds long, two videos that might be 10 seconds long each, one file might be bigger than the other simply because the lighting was different or you moved around a lot. Setting that on the lowest is just, especially if you are really interested in incorporating a lot of video in your report, it's just something you want to be cautious with. And now that 360 photos have come into play, it may not be nearly as important because that's a much smaller file. Okay, so alternate camera apps again, Camera MX, Open Camera, A Better Camera, that's actually the name of the app, A Better Camera, and Annotation Camera. These are alternate camera apps available on the Google Play Store for Android devices. Now that we kind of have we would have our stuff all set up, we have our camera settings right, we have our license, and we have the app installed on our device. So the first thing we would do is we need to get our template to the device. Okay, so when we talk about how HomeGauge uses the cloud, it is not a pure cloud environment where things just automatically communicate with each other. When you're using the HomeGauge Companion, you're using more of a drop-off point for the cloud, okay? And obviously, when people envision what the cloud means, and we use the word cloud pretty loosely in software speak, technically any storage space off of your computer where you can access things is the cloud. But when you're sending your template from the software to the cloud and retrieving it on your computer, it's just a drop-off point because you can't actually access that file from the internet. You couldn't go and do something with it. It's just there for you to retrieve onto your mobile device. So at this very moment, I'm going to send the template to the cloud for myself, and then I'm going to retrieve it on the mobile device. So you can see I'm here on my PC. And we have our menus up across the top here. I'm going to go into HomeGauge services so that I can be sure that I'm logged in to my account. And then I'm going to send the template that I like to use to the cloud. So here's my username and password, obviously, or maybe not so obviously. In order to use this, you have to have active HomeGauge services. I have my username and password. I'm going to tell it to always remember here and click OK. And now I'm going to go back up to HomeGauge Services, and many of you may be familiar with this menu, but you can do a variety of things from here to access your HomeGauge dashboard. I'm going to upload cloud templates and settings, and it's going to prompt me when I do that. So it pretty much walks me through the whole thing. So here's my template. I can pick the different categories here if I want to, if my template lives somewhere else. And I'm going to just pick my webinar template by system. I could pick any of these, and then I will click OK. And it takes a minute to decide what it's doing, and it sends that data to that drop-off point for me. And it says it's successfully been uploaded. So now I can minimize this, and I'm going to go into my HomeGauge Companion. So let's have a look at some of, I'm going to pull this down, and then we're going to take a little tour of the menu on the Companion, okay? So in order to pull that down, I need to come to this little 3-dot overflow menu, this little guy right here. So pretty much everybody's Android device should look like this. And I'll select that, and now I'm going to go down to HomeGauge Services, just like on my PC. And I'm going to check my username and password, and I have it all entered in there, and I'm going to tell it to always remember, and I'll click OK. It validates it for me. In order for this to work properly, you obviously have to be connected to the internet. It has to search for that information to validate it. And now I'm going to go back up to that 3-dot overflow menu and go back into HomeGauge Services. And now I'm going to get templates and settings from cloud. And I want you to keep in mind that we all get pretty attached to our template, but this is more than just your template. This is some other settings that come over so that other features work. So when you write your report, even on your computer, a whole other slew of things come into play. The template just happens to be the thing we think of at the front of our minds, but there are other little features that are at work as well. So I'm going to get templates and settings from cloud. And then it says, although it doesn't really make that noise, but I'd like to make it. And just to be sure that it came over, I'm now going to go and have a look at my templates available on this computer, on this mobile device. So I'm going to use this menu right here. This is called the hamburger menu, and it's at the top left. I don't know who made that up, but I guess it does kind of look like a hamburger. And I'm going to select my report template. This looks just like it does on the computer, pretty much. I have two here. I had sent this one earlier when I was making sure everything was functioning for myself. And here's my webinar template by system. I'm not going to pick anything right now because we're going to look at a few other things first. But if my template was not under residential, like this category right here on my computer when I sent it over, I could use this little drop down here, and it will show me those other categories potentially if it was in another one. So for example, if I had my template in the advanced folder or something like that, I actually had sent some other templates from other categories, so these show up on here. But advanced users, that type of thing, you might see this. So if you know that your template's in another folder, you might go in here and find that. So I'm going to go back. And now we're just going to do a quick little tour of the menus across the top, okay? So this 3-dot menu, and we have some other things here. So if I had already started a report and I needed to start a report from scratch, I could click New Report. If I had started a report and I wanted to look at a report I had done earlier in the day, I could pick Open Report. So it's just very similar to the software. Save report, if you had done a lot of work, and even though there's an autosave feature on here and you wanted to just for your peace of mind, come in here and click Save Report, you could do that. And then we have More and HomeGauge Services. So let's look at More and see what's under there, because there are a few things that are interesting under there. So, General. This isn't anything huge. This is basically the most common thing here is if people didn't want to use their data, they might check off this first box about only allowing internet connections over Wi-Fi. And the second one, only show comment name in the select comment list. When we get into looking at the comments, this prevents you from having to see like the entire paragraph of your narrative on the screen. It compacts the list. So those are just some personal choices you can make for yourself if you decide that, yeah, you don't need to see the entire paragraph of how the roof covering is past its life expectancy. You can look at the short name and determine that that's what you're looking for. Okay, so those are some minor ones. And then if I go back in there, the autosave and backup, excuse me, on default, this saves every 20 minutes. And actually, I want to say, I think 5 is the default backup as well. I don't think I've changed this. So some people get worried, maybe their battery life gets low, maybe, you know, something like this. They might change this to save every 5 minutes. Keep in mind, it's going to pause for a minute while it's saving. So maybe every minute isn't a great idea. You can try it as long as it doesn't interrupt you. I think every 5 minutes is probably the most extreme I think is necessary. Number of backups. So what that means is every time it saves, so for this example, when it saves every 20 minutes, it creates a backup and it will store 5 backups 20 minutes apart so that if you needed to recover or restore a backup, you would lose 20 minutes worth of work if something really went wrong. That doesn't happen a lot, but in extreme cases. So if you do 5 here for 5 minutes, maybe you want to increase your number of backups to 10. I don't think I'd go over 10 backups. Biggest changes I would make here, and only if you feel like it's necessary, to change the how often to 5 minutes and the backups to 10, and that should be sufficient. What I have here has never been a problem for me, but you guys are obviously out in the field doing a lot of different things. So I just want you to feel secure in how that works for you. The HomeGauge data folder really isn't going to be anything you really deal with. Most of our devices have an extraordinary amount of storage space, so I would not worry about that. Apply report fill. Those of you who have created report fill in your HomeGauge 5 software, which technically is not a template change. It can work on multiple templates, but you can apply fill from the companion. The other thing we have here is report size. So what's important here is that when we are creating our report and we have all of these pictures and narratives, potentially videos, maybe voice recordings, the file is growing. And if you are at a really large house and you're kind of getting concerned, you're like, wow, this is a big report. I need to have a look at the report size so I can be prepared if it's not going to upload to the cloud. If you click on report size, it'll tell you the approximate size. And I emphasize approximate because it's measuring the data you've collected. It's not considering the size of, say, the template itself, or a variety of different elements that it kind of starts out with, right? Typically, even though we have 200 megabytes to upload with, I wouldn't want to see this approximate report size to be over, say, 180. So you have 20 megabytes to play with so that you don't have to worry about going over. So that was our report size. Contacts, you're really not going to go much into that. It stores your contacts. That's one of the things that gets sent when you upload cloud templates and settings. And background color. So I'm going to choose that for just a minute, just so you can see. So I'm on the light background color. I feel like that's easier to see, especially for a webinar. But you can change it to dark, and maybe that's easier for you to see. It has like this reverse type thing. I'm going to change it back just because for our purposes today, I find that the white is easier to see. I like for other apps that I use, many other messaging apps, and I use the darker background for myself. So those are the options that are under More. Then we'll go into HG Services. So this is where you enter your username and password. We did that earlier. This is where you would retrieve the report from the cloud. So if you use the appointment manager or even ISN, this isn't necessary. Once upon a time, people would pull down their appointments to the PC and then send that report to the cloud and retrieve it. If you're still doing that, you don't have to do that. You can actually download the appointments directly to the companion, and we'll do that today. So that kind of saves a step, and it also prevents that scenario where you've sent a report from the PC, you retrieve it on the companion, and when you send it back, the PC says, hey, you've already got this report on your computer, don't you know? And you're like, well, now I'm scared. Do I want to have a second copy or do I want to override it? So this avoids that situation, and you know that whatever you're sending back is going to be the right thing. So get your report from cloud. That's not used as much here. And send current report to cloud. Whatever report you have open will be sent. Get templates and settings from cloud. So one more thing about downloading appointments. What that means is if you're using the HomeGauge Appointment Manager and you have entered all your information for appointments and the customer name and property, when you use this feature, it pulls down everything that you need. Keeping in mind that you could pull down more than one appointment, okay? So what that means is you have to remember that you have to open the report once you pull it down. Because if you can pull down multiples, there's no way for the app to know which one you would want to open, right? So just keep that in mind. If you're going to download them, you need to turn around and open the report you're about to write, the inspection you're about to write. So I will do that here in just a few minutes. So those are all your extra options under HG services. The thing about sending the template to the cloud that I did earlier, it is my opinion that you should do that every day. Okay, I don't care if you say to yourself, I didn't make a change to my template. You know what? You need, your template is a tool. It's your tool for writing your report. You wouldn't leave your house without your ladder or your flashlight or anything like that. So it is my opinion that before you head out for the day, or maybe even the evening before, you send your template to the cloud and you get it on your mobile device. This will prevent you from inadvertently using an older version of your template. So let's say you didn't remember making a template change yesterday. You made a minor spelling correction. It was like not even anything. Your brain didn't hardly register it. It wasn't a big deal. But you didn't send your template to the cloud and you didn't retrieve it on your mobile device. So today when you go out to do your inspection, you open up the template, everything seems fine. You write your report and everything technically is fine. There's nothing like caught on fire or anything. And when you're done, you send the report to the cloud, you get it on the PC, and when you open the report, it says, you're not able to modify your template because the template you're using is an older version. And that's because you didn't update that template on your mobile device. So if you just make it part of your process, you're less likely to get that message. Obviously, there's other scenarios that come into play when it comes to getting that message, but you can greatly avoid it by just habitually every day, send that template to the cloud and get it on your mobile device so it updates any template changes you may have made. I think that a lot of people get confused as to why am I getting this message? The app has no way of knowing if you made a template change on your computer unless you tell it. And you need to transfer that information in order for that information to be there. So let's pull down an appointment. I'd gone into my appointment manager and I made an appointment. And so I'm going to come right up here to this 3-dot overflow menu, and I'm going to pull down my appointments under the HG Services menu option. Download appointments, okay? It'll only show my future appointments. I could have, several here, but I'm just going to select this one. And like I said, I could select multiples, which is why it doesn't open it for me. And I'm going to click download here at the bottom. And as soon as I do that, you see how it says you need to open the report in order for that to work. There's sort of a implication here. You feel like you're somewhere that it might be open, especially once you click on this 3-dot, this hamburger menu over here. Kind of looks like a report that you would have on your computer without a template selected. But you really need to open the report. So I'm going to click Open Report, and here's my property, and I will open that at the bottom. Okay, it automatically brings me to my customer page, so you can see the customer information is already filled out for me. And if I go to my little hamburger menu at the top left, I can now click on Report Info, and it tells me the property address and all that type of thing. Okay, so as we get into this now, I'm going to use that hamburger menu and talk a little bit about what we can do here. So 2 ways to access this information. I can either click on this little 3-line hamburger menu and it will bring up this menu, or I can swipe my device from left to right from any screen and it will bring this menu, and when I select a template it will show me all my components. All right, so I'm here, I'm going to select my template. I'm actually just going to select my systems one from earlier. And now it shows me all the components. This looks very much like what you see on your computer. And really that means the same thing. You're just going to navigate through all of this to write your report. You can see the customer information is the same, and that type, and then the report information. So let's have a quick look at the forms. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but I will say 2 things. If you were using forms previously and you updated your software, the forms on your HomeGauge 5 software on your computer, you're going to have 2 groups, I'll call them. So let me just open this really quickly and show you. I'm going to click on miscellaneous over here. And if you don't use forms, this won't be important to you, but this has been a very long requested feature add-on, and so we did do it, and I just want people to know it's available. Forms right here. Whoops. And if I click on forms and I use my plus sign right here to add forms, these are going to be on default. It's the new forms that will work on the HomeGauge Companion. If you wanted to see your old forms because you weren't going to use the companion for your forms, you could just check off this box down here where it says show older format PDF forms, and it would show you that in the list. When you send your templates and settings to the companion, it's not sending the old ones. It will only send the new ones. So keep that in mind. So if you're like, but I've already set all my settings and default things like that, you just have to reset them. There's not that much information that can get stored in advance, but the benefit of being able to do it on Companion is pretty decent. So you just want to look how it's going to affect your workflow. All right. That's because I didn't pick it. I didn't pick a form HomeGauge. So those are the new forms. And if I'm here in my on my companion, I can click on miscellaneous. So forms are right here. So from here, you're going to go to the 3-dot overflow menu, and you can add a form right up here. You can remove a form, you can reorganize forms. It kind of gives you these extra features here. Add a form, and then I would pick the appropriate form. Okay, and this is just a totally different, they had to restyle and reformat these forms to function properly on the companion. So you could select one of these, and it looks sort of like it did on the computer, but you can do whatever you need to do here, fill out your information, and it kind of scrolls over. And I think this one has pictures too. I think I picked one that had pictures. It's long because your screen is smaller, and here's some various different things that you can fill out. So those of you who are in Florida especially, you might want to have a look at this. I'll just kind of reiterate that it is under miscellaneous because I didn't make that very clear. Miscellaneous, and when you go there, it will default to the forms tab. And you pick your form by using this 3-dot overflow menu. I'm going to remove the form because I'm not actually going to fill it out, but I would like for any of you, this really makes it easier. And if you need a form that you purchased to be on here, call HomeGauge. They'll tell you if that one is available. I think they're still working on a variety of pest forms. So the forms are available on these versions of HomeGauge. And I'm swiping out. And so now I'm just going to start writing my report, right? I know it took me like 45 minutes to get to this point, but it's really important to know where everything lives, so you're not just jumping in blind. Someone's asking, what tablet we recommend. I don't think formally we really recommend one because everybody has different tastes. I can tell you as far as the best ones, most guys I know use a Note, a Samsung Note. You don't want something too old because some of the older operating systems don't allow for the functionality that we add to our app. So you want something within reason. You know, I think it's on 10 now is the Note 10. Maybe look at a couple of generations, maybe not the 7 because I think that had like some serious issues. As far as the form on the mobile device that I was looking at, it is a PDF. When it gets back to your computer, it will produce a PDF, if I didn't make that clear. So those forms ultimately create a PDF. So even when you're filling out the forms on the mobile device, when you get it back to your PC, the form is a PDF that you distribute. Those fields that you're filling out, you're actually populating a PDF. So let's get some information in here like we're doing an inspection. I'm only going to do a couple of components, but the first thing I want to point out to you that you may not know is that you can do duplicate sections on the HomeGauge Companion. What that means is if you get to the site and you discover something like there are 2 garages and you want to be able to independently inspect them, you can do that on the Companion because it is not a template change. So in order to make that work, and and this is great for a variety of things. If you have multiple heating and air systems, if you have multiple roofs that you need to inspect, even if you have a mother-daughter situation where you've got 2 units or multiple units, you could do that on the fly this way. So what I'm going to do first is I need to get into the screen that allows me to make changes to the component list. So I'm going to click on the word components here. And it brings me to this screen. And if I go to garage and I do a long hold, I'm going to place my finger on the word garage and it's going to pop up a menu. And what I want to do is, well, obviously I could exclude it if there was no garage on site and it would just automatically exclude it. That's nice to know. And I can duplicate it. So that's really what I want to do. So duplicating means I can either give it my own name. So if I wanted to say garage 1 and garage 2, I could do that. But HomeGauge has some default names that I can choose from. So if I use this drop down here, I can say there is an attached garage and there is a detached garage. And I'll click OK. And that means now I will have 2 sections with its own inspection items, its own styles and materials, allowing me to inspect these structures separately. I could do that for units, for interiors. I could do it for, I don't know, if there were a couple of kitchens, I suppose, but most commonly I see it used for heating and air. I see that a lot when there's multiple heating and air systems where you want to indicate different manufacturers or different ages, that type of thing. So this is really useful for that. Now, if I did this and I said, oh, actually, no, there wasn't really 2 garages, I could just do a long hold on the item. So I did a long hold on attached garage, and I'm going to remove the duplicate. When I do that, it's going to remove both because I have 2, and I only need the one number 3 next to number 3 garage when I have 2. If I had 3 here, it would only eliminate the 1. So if you have more than 2, it's only going to eliminate 1 at a time. If you only have 2, it will eliminate the 2 of them, leaving you with garage or whatever the component is. And we're back to garage. So that is not obviously a template change because you can't make template changes on the Companion, but it is a nice on-the-fly type feature to be able to indicate multiple types of something you want to inspect independently. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into the roofing section and I'm going to inspect my roof. So I'll click on roofing and it brings me to my inspection items just like on my computer. And I can swipe through here. There's my styles and materials, and there's my overview, just like on my computer. And I'm just swiping my screen to navigate through that, okay? So if I've got roof coverings, for example, and I get there and I say, oh, this has got some issues, I can click on Repair Replace, or whatever your column headers are. I'm just using my template, whatever your column headers are. And now I'm going to click on the little arrow to the right to bring me to a page where I can add comments and pictures. So on this page, it kind of gives you some instructions. You can see that we're in roof coverings. Let me get my little spotlight. Roofing, roof coverings. We're on item 1 of 1 on default, just like we would be if we were on our computer. And right here it says, click here to add a comment. I just want to make it clear, you can click anywhere in this whole white box. It doesn't have to like be on these words, okay? For those of you who use check your answers, that's this little suitcase right here. And down here we find our camera options and video options and that type of thing. So because I already clicked Repair Replace, you'll see down here it indicates that whatever I put here is going to the summary because my template is set up that when I click repair, replace, it sends that information to the summary. So you can do one of two things here. You could take the picture first, or you can add your comment first. I'm going to add my comment first, and I'm just going to tap on the screen, and it gives me all of these options. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add an auto comment, but I'm just going to kind of go through this individually so you know what each one does. Add an auto comment, it brings me my auto comment list. If I had already added a comment and I needed to itemize a second one, I could use the second option to add an auto comment to a new itemized item. If I needed to edit a comment I already inserted, I could use this, edit comment and speak, which means voice to text, and this would edit a comment to an itemized item and speak. Replace smart text if you had skipped over smart text and you wanted to populate it. And then there's just a few other options that add an itemized item without selecting a comment. You could go in there and just manually add something, or move itemized up and down. I will say about this screen, the edit comment and speak, it starts your microphone right away when you do that. I prefer to click edit this comment and then use the microphone on my keyboard so that I can speak when I'm ready. So it's really just going to open like a blank comment when you do that. Typically, this edit this comment was meant for, oh, I already entered a comment and I need to tweak it or I need to change it. That's what it was meant for. But if you pick it, having not added a comment, you can add a comment from scratch and use the microphone on your keyboard to do that. I prefer that because oftentimes you're talking to your client and you don't want to start recording something you don't intend to be part of your comment. For this moment, I'm just going to add an auto comment here. And here are all of my comments. Okay, everything that I have that's in my template. And this is kind of big, right? I mean, it is kind of big. That option that you saw earlier where you could condense the list, where it said only show one line, that would help here if this is a really extensive list and you know what your comments are. It's important to be familiar with how your comments are arranged. The other thing I want to point out here is this little drop-down menu. There's a little arrow here. When you come here, you see all, okay? This means show me all of my comments that are available in this auto comment list. Here's a drop down. If I click on that drop down, it shows me filters. Now, this might be like, people are like, I've been using the companion. What are filters? Oh my goodness gracious. If you want to know what this is about, you need to go and watch my template modifying the whole thing and the best practices for template modifications. This is what it's about. What it's about is keeping things organized. And if you are an organized person and you always pick a category when you add a comment, you will see filters here. If you come here and it just says all and there's no filters, you have some template work to do. But this can really help when you have a long list of comments here and you don't want to see them all. I just want to see tree limb, anything that has to do with tree limbs. That eliminates everything in my list except for one comment. That makes it a lot faster as opposed to trying to remember how things are organized. Here's metal, only a couple, right? I'm just going to go to all because I know which comment I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick this roof life gone 1 to 2 years, okay? And I can click on that and insert as one comment. And there's my comment. So now I've taken my comment. Now I need to take a picture. I'm going to come down here to my little camera. Now you'll have to forgive me for a minute because I have this set up here with like printed up pictures because I didn't want to just randomly take pictures of the walls in my studio. So I'm going to click on this little picture, the camera, and I'm going to take a picture of this very old roof. Actually, see how it's asking me if I want which camera I want to use? When you first get an alternate camera app, you might just want to say try it just once to make sure you like it. I'm going to say to always use it so it doesn't interrupt me anymore for this. That just kind of allows you to test it out before picking it. So that, I don't know why that looks that way on my screen, but it's going to look different when I take it. It's telling me it thinks my picture is kind of large. I do have it a little bit larger, but I'm only taking a few pictures. I'm only taking a few pictures. This isn't a real report. You guys take a lot more pictures than I do, so consider that when you are looking at your settings. Now, I took this picture, and the only way I know that I took this picture is that there's a little 1 down here. It says Pics 1. And this one picture that I just took goes with this comment. Well, at first you're kind of like, wait a minute, what does that picture look like? Well, we don't have enough real estate on the screen to show you the picture and the comment every single time. So I could go to this little icon right here that looks like that old school roll of film. That will allow me to review the picture that I have taken. And there it is. So, and if I wanted to put a picture label here, I could do that, okay? So I'm going to back out of there. So now I have one picture and one comment. So right now, let's say I have a second issue with my roof covering. All I'm going to do is, I could do this a couple of ways, but I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to click on this screen where I can add a comment. And now, because I have a second comment and a second picture I'd like to add, I can add an auto comment to the new itemized item, the second option from the top. And now it's going to say, okay, what are the issues here? How about roof shingles cracked? I'm going to pick that one. And when I pick it, I've already selected that I want to itemize this. So I don't have to insert it as an itemized item. I'm just going to insert it as one comment. Okay, and I want you to notice something here. 2 of 2. I'm on my second tab, right? Because a minute ago, if I go back to the primary comment that I made, I'll click on this little arrow, this little guy right here. Now it says 1 of 2. This is my first comment with my first picture. And if I click this arrow to the right to go to the next tab, it will take me to my second comment that I haven't taken a picture for yet. So for the moment, I'm going to show you how that's how to itemize one way. There's other ways to itemize, but that's just one. So let me take a picture for this. And then I'll talk about, William asked how to add multiple comments and itemize them. So let me click on my little camera. Here's my other roof covering picture. And it's telling me that my picture is kind of large. It's really okay. And if you know that you're okay, you can tell it not to tell you that anymore. But I would say to test that pretty well before you do it. And now I have 2 tabs. This is 2 of 2. I have a comment and I have a picture that goes with it, right? And that's fine. But if I knew I had multiple comments that I wanted to add, I could add them at the same time and then navigate through my tabs and add the pictures. And let's look at how to do that. So I'm going to go back one in roof covering. I was in roof coverings just now. I'm going to go into flashings, right? And I'm just gonna pick random things. I don't have any pictures for that, so I may just reuse some of the pictures I have. I go in here, and I'm going to click on this box to add a comment. And I'm going to add an auto comment here at the top. So let's say I have several deficiencies here. I have loose flashing. I have the rock chimney is charred. And I have the cap flashing is not notched into the mortar joint. So I have these 3. If I click add as one comment here, it's going to put them in a paragraph format. I don't want that. I need it to itemize each one. So I'm going to click insert as itemized. And when I do that, now we're on item 3 of 3. I'm on my last itemized item. At this point, I could add a picture of this deficiency, and then I could navigate back to the one before this and then add the picture for each one. So let me get my little pointer here and say, okay, that's item 3. I go back one, that's item 2, and that's item 1. And then you would add a picture for each one of those. You could even itemize a picture on its own and then add your comment from the picture. What's important here is that you pay attention to what you have going on here. So once you start itemizing, I don't want you to be like, wait a minute, because the screen looks the same. I'm not a developer. I can't speak for how difficult it would be to kind of show a little bit of a difference on each one of those tabs, even if it meant a slight shade difference so you could see. But just know that if you see more than, if this doesn't say 1 of 1, you have multiple tabs. If it says 1 of 2, 1 of 3, 1 of 4, or 3 of 3, anything like that. So that way you can navigate through and add your pictures accordingly. Oh, thank you, William. William's one of my biggest fans. So that's how you would itemize your comments, and then you can also add your pictures to those. Okay, let's see what else I've got here. So let me go back one. So you can see how these items are repair, replace, and when I go into these, you can see the summary is being created as I do that, right? The next thing I want to make sure that I do, I'm going to throw a couple pictures in on those other one for the flashing, just because I want you to be able to see, because I always go over. I just talk too much, you guys. I should always just say my webinars are an hour and a half long and then be like, finish 15 minutes early and I'll look really good. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to take some pictures again. This isn't going to be the appropriate pictures because I only have siding and roofing pictures. So I'm on my item 1 of 1 for flashing, and I'm going to take a picture, right? That was really vinyl siding, but oh well. And now I have one there. I can navigate to my next item by clicking this little guy, and then I can take another picture. And these all go to the summary. Okay. So now I have a few pictures in there, right? And what's important here is that, you know, as we're collecting this, the summary's being created, everything's going through, we're going to do styles and materials, and then I'm going to show you how you would review the pictures in your summary or even in your report so that you can look at it with your client on site, okay? I know that I'm getting some questions in, and Matt was not able to stay until the end for me, so I promise you I will answer these. So right now what we need to do is go back a page and go into styles and materials. So I'm swiping my screen from right to left, and here's styles and materials. Here's my roof coverings. I can say my roof coverings are 3-tab and architectural. And the next item I'm going to choose in my styles and materials, I'll just click this little drop down menu right here, and it will allow me to go to the next item. So how did I view the roof? If I click that, I viewed it from the ground and a ladder, okay? And actually you can use this little arrow over here, I'm pretty sure, to navigate to the next one. Let me make sure you see that. This little guy, let's try that. I'm afraid I've not used it. So let me see. Oh, look at that, that's even better. Don't even bother with that drop down. This little arrow is better. Skylights, you can indicate how many skylights you have, and chimney exterior might be brick and rock. And now you finished your styles and materials for that one. And if you swipe from right to left, we wind up in the overview section. This is typically your intro and footer regarding your standards and what it is that someone should expect you to do on an inspection. What you do, what you don't do, that type of thing. But what's nice about this is you can do some courtesy pictures, some complimentary pictures. And what that means is not going to have, this is great for you just want to take a picture of the great room, partially as a courtesy, partially to show that there's a giant entertainment system there, so that when they move it and they find an issue behind it, you can say, you know, just look in your overview section, there was a piece of furniture there, I can't move that, or whatever the issue is. I'm going to click on section pictures at the bottom, right down here. And I would click on this camera again. I really don't have anything interesting to take a picture of, I don't think. So I'm just going to take a picture of my microphone. Here's my little setup, you guys. Look, there's my, oh, that's not a very clean camera right there. There's my HomeGauge water bottle and some other things. So let's pretend that's our complimentary picture. That doesn't look very good because I think my lens is dirty. And now we're just going to accept that as my picture, and I can go back. So now we have a complimentary picture. Some people like to take these pictures that don't depict a deficiency. And if you're doing that, do it in the overview section. The only time it really needs to be in the body of the report, if it's like, here's your air filter or something that they need to know. I don't know that that's necessary to put in overview, but if you're just trying to say, look, I walked in this room, then using the overview is acceptable. All right, so we've done our styles and materials. You guys are silly, and I'm gonna answer your silly questions. I'm like, this is my favorite thing to do, one of my favorites. It's always so fun because you guys always keep me entertained while I'm doing this. So we've done all of our things here. Let's pretend we did our whole entire report. Actually, you know what I left out? I left out something important. I didn't tell you how to take a cover page picture. Under general info, cover page pictures down here. And this is also your general information. So if you want to indicate who's in attendance, that type of thing, it's a little different than styles and materials. If you click in attendance, and there's a little 3-dot overflow menu right down here. If I click on that, it will give me all the choices. So let's say it's the customer and their agent. And then I would just click on type of building, and I'd click on the 3-dot menu down here, and then I would indicate it's a single family or whichever. So that's how you complete that. It's a little different than styles and materials. But then I need to take my cover page picture, and I'm just going to see what I really don't have much to take pictures of. It's very tiny in here. I'm going to click on the camera, the bottom left, and that's kind of crazy. I'm going to take a picture of me taking a picture, and we'll pretend that's our awesome cover page picture. It's a little different than taking the standard pictures that we get from the findings sections, I'll call them, but it is obviously important. It's easy to overlook that because you don't typically think about the cover page picture being there on here. So let's look at a couple of things left. So let's say you thought you were finished with your report. You could use the Find Unanswered at the bottom of this list right here to go through everything, especially once you really kind of get the hang of it and you feel like it should be mostly complete. When you're using this, it's just bringing up things that are incomplete. You obviously have, other options here to find styles and materials, if you flagged anything. Voice recordings, those are nice, but they're really not for your customer. It might be something that you find you use now and then for notes to yourself, and you would play it back, and they're found under that same menu for adding comments. So you could check everything here, or you could do it when you get it back to the PC. I personally find it a little easier on the PC, but it depends on how much you want to get done on site. Okay, so the last thing I want to do here is let's have a look at the summary. Now, it's not going to show you the summary the way it looks in the report, like when you're distributing it, but it will allow you to review your comments and your pictures with your client or agent on site. So I'm going to select Summary right down here. And it gives me little instructions. You can swipe straight across to move to the next or previous summary item and use the back button to go back to the report. I'm just going to click OK. And here's my comment and my picture, right? And I'm going to swipe. There it goes through here. I'm just swiping through, and there's everything, right? Now, I didn't put any picture for the cat flashing, and because I eliminated, that was my third one, I didn't put a picture there. Now, what if I wanted to show them all the pictures in the report, not just the pictures in the summary? So if I go to this 3-dot overflow menu up here, I can say, number one, I can say hide the comments. If I feel like those comments are taking up too much real estate and I want to be able to show more of the picture, I could do that. Or I can say show any item with a photo. I don't know if that will show me my overview pictures or not. Actually, it probably wouldn't. So if I had pictures that were not summary items, so maybe they were a picture like here's your air filter, or here's like your electrical panel that didn't have a deficiency, that would show up here as well when you change that setting. I like to leave that setting so that it automatically shows them. So because you can't really navigate, there's not a way to navigate through the whole thing and show them all the pictures. So I like that setting personally, but on default, you'll come here and it will only be summary items. So let's say that I'm finished with my report. I'm going to send this to the cloud, and then I'm going to retrieve it on my computer and show you a couple of other things, and then I'm going to answer the rest of your questions, which I really appreciate your patience today on this little last tag. I usually get a little cluster of questions towards the end. So I'm finished with my report. I'm going to use this 3-dot overflow menu. Actually, I need to go back over here first. I need to go into the report first, and then go to the 3-dot overflow menu, and I'm going to go to HG Services and send current report to cloud. That's what I want to do. So hypothetically, I have finished my report. It's saying, is this the one you really want to send? Because sometimes you may have done something earlier. So they want to make sure the one you have open is the one you want to send. Yes, it is. And it goes up. That seems awfully fast, but we shall see. Maybe everyone's probably gone from HomeGauge. Nobody is on the computer. And click OK. And now I'm going to come into my software. And I need to go to HG Services at the top so that I can get that report from the cloud. Get report from cloud. It thinks you could have a report open. Even though you may not have a template selected, that doesn't mean you didn't fill in customer information or anything like that. Here is my customer. Now I will say you need to be sure to click in the left column to select that report, because you could select more than one. So highlighting it is not selecting it. You need to click in the left column so an X shows up and you would select as many as you wanted. And now I'm going to click download. And now I have to go to open. Same thing, same concept. You have to open it because you could have downloaded more than one report. I will go up here to click download. Open rather, right up here. And here is my report. I'm going to open it up. And the thing here that is like a key element in showing you how much faster it can be, even if you just took your pictures for the HomeGauge on the HomeGauge Companion, you didn't do other things, you could go through all of your pictures really quickly. So at the top here, we have this little drop down. It says Find Unanswered, but if you click this drop down, there's an option to edit all photos. Because if you had to dig through to find all your photos, that is not time saving. That would be like, what? Who cares about the companion then? So edit all photos is there, and I'm going to go to find first. It's going to open up my first photo. There's my lovely cover page picture. That is a stunning home. We all want to live there. And now I'm going to click next at the bottom. It'll open my next picture. Now I can, and look, I have a 1-to-1 ratio. You see how square that picture is? If I needed to turn this picture, that's one reason to look for a 1-to-1 ratio. I just love it. I just can't stand cattywampus looking weird shaped pictures. I just have to have even pictures. But anyway, now I can add my annotations, right? Click OK, next rather. And I'm just going to keep kind of doing, here's all my edits. Now the other thing I can do here when I get to one that, let's say next, let's say that comment's not right. Let's pretend for a minute. This comment is not right for my picture. I picked the wrong comment. I can edit my comment from the editor right now by clicking on this little box with the arrow. Okay, I don't have to close this out and go into that comment box. I can click on this little box and here's my comment, and I can either type in here what the proper comment should be, or I can erase it, and I can use my magic wand and I can go into whatever the proper comment is and insert it as one comment. And as soon as I click OK here, there's my comment. It's corrected. For those of you who didn't know this update had happened, you can add comments from your picture screen, your editor. Even if you hadn't added any comments, you could have done this. So I love that feature now. It really makes a huge difference so that you're not stopping and starting. And I can click next, and I can just do what I need to do here, next. And this is an overview picture, so I'm not going to do anything with that. And I can click next, and now it says there are no photos found. I have gone through all of my photos. So if you've got 50 pictures, you don't have to be going, oh, I'm poking through, I'm going on my roofing, where's that picture? I've got to come in here. There's no digging around. Use Edit All Photos. This is a great tool to edit them all and modify your comments. Obviously, you would then go through, do your Find Unanswered, find everything that you need to find, and then distribute your report accordingly, uploading it and distributing it. Start with pictures. This is my 2 cents on the companion. Start with photos, and then just bring them back and navigate through all of your pictures here and add your comments from the editor. I like to do styles and materials before comments, so maybe do your styles and materials first. And then add your styles and materials to your report on the companion, and then add your comments. I really feel like within no time you can be writing the majority of the report on site. So now I'm going to go through here and see how many comments I have not answered. I have brick with on the selection page you can delete, but you have to scroll down to the, oh, you mean, okay, Brick, I think what you're talking about is to delete a comment. When you are editing a comment, you have to go all the way down to the bottom to delete. Can you confirm with me that's what you mean? Because if it is, the reason that is there is so you don't inadvertently delete something. It better be a conscious decision if you're deleting a comment to scroll all the way down to the bottom. We had it higher up and people were inadvertently hitting it, and then everything was on fire and it was not pretty. How to go back and add more pictures to a defect that's already there? That's a good question, Eric. So let's see here. Let's see. I will minimize this. So if you're in the companion and you want to add more pictures, so this one has one picture at the bottom, right? It only has one. All I have to do to add more pictures to this particular one, let's say I have multiple pictures depicting that the roof is old. All I have to do is click on this icon again, and it will open my camera, and I'll just take another picture of a roof. And now I have 2 pictures, right? And if I wanted to add something to the second itemized item, I would click this arrow to go to the next itemized item. Now I'm on 2 of 2, and I could come in here and I could do a video if I wanted to. I'm going to click that really quickly. I'm just going to give you a little scan. See, we've got like soundproofing and everything. All right, so this is my little room. It picks up my voice and everything, and here's my little printed up pictures I got for you guys. Next time I'll probably do more. I've got all this soundproofing because besides the fact that I don't want to hear people from outside here, they certainly do not want to hear me because I'm very loud. Now I've got a 17-second video, which is fine. I will say that typically you want a video to be 10 seconds. Don't do a 3-second video because that's a picture. And just make it long enough so you have something to show for it, okay? So now I have 1 picture and 1 video. So that is how you add more pictures to any item. What video do we search for organize? Okay, so if you want to do template work, the video I did a few weeks ago was best practices with template best practices. It's really recent. It's only been uploaded in the last, say, 2 weeks. So it actually may even say with Shancy on it. So you can even just go to the HomeGauge YouTube channel and just search my name, and it should, anything with my name in the title should come up. So there's probably only, I don't know, 3 right now. I just kind of started doing that, but that is an excellent one. And if you're on the HomeGauge users page with Facebook, I did a really short video there and you could just search like Shancy template probably on that page. And it's like 10 minutes. And it's all about, it primarily focuses on organize your global list, organizing it, and getting those filters functioning for you. Thank you. We do have a fun office set up here. Other people set it up. I really enjoy it. So if you're in your computer and you have a picture open in the editor, if you come down to this default, edit default tool settings, you can set your cover page picture to be larger than the others. So everything I have here came in at medium for anything with inspection items, medium for overview, but large for the cover page. So that's where those sizes are controlled. Don't feel like you have to change the setting on your companion pictures, like your camera. That is not going to make the difference for you. This is where you want to make, I mean, I suppose a square, you could, I guess, if you'd like it to be more rectangular, the cover page picture, that's what you'd have to do. But if you just want that picture to be larger, this is where you would come. This is also where you would change your default colors and your items for editing the photo. So Brick's point was, if I click on this and I have to get to that delete or erase comment, it's all the way down here. We even put a space in between it because it was up further, and my goodness gracious, so many people, you know, inspectors aren't, they're like delicate little hands, you know, working people and big hands and fingers and little devices. The next thing you know, you've deleted your comment, and you don't want to do that. So that is why you can, I'll point out also, you can do pass fail for reinspection on there. I kind of skipped over that today, but I'm sure I'll do another one in the future, because this was really, really popular. I mean, for me to have still 16 of you still here and 20 of you showed up. I mean, I'm so glad that I was able to keep your attention, and you had great questions. As you all know, I mean, many of you know me from, I've been doing this for a long time. Training you guys is one of my absolute favorite treasures in my life. It is ridiculous, and I say it a million times, I need to get a hobby, but I need to get a hobby. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me, shancy@homegauge.com. That's SHANCY @homegauge.com, or support@homegauge.com if you have any other questions that are more general about anything. So thanks, guys. And gals, I know we've got some women here. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And watch out for my next webinar. I'm looking forward to teaching you something new next time. Have a great night.